welcome to the Unshackled Moms Alliance. Today I am here with Miss Sandra. So you guys have all heard buzzwords like EMDR, trauma therapy, how trauma affects your brain, how it affects your body, and we're just here to kind of break it down because, what the heck does all that mean? I don't know. So I asked Sandra to come and just kind of share a little bit. She's an expert in EMDR. She speaks all over the country. So, we are really honored and treasured to have her here today. Welcome.
Thank you, Lisa. It's just an honor to be here. I'm excited to talk about one of my passions, which is EMDR therapy.
I love it. So I, as a Christian, it was really hard for me to do, come around EMDR therapy for a really long time because I was like, okay, so you put me in some kind of meditative trance? What the heck is all that? But then, as I studied or whatever, I just it's so much different than, there's no hypnosis, there's none of that kind of woo-woo kind of stuff. It's just all practical science, which is just amazing to me.
Right, it absolutely is, because it is about the brain. And I think about the Lord, and I think about, we don't see eye movement in the Bible, but we definitely see restoration and healing. Mm-hmm. He has a real heart for us to be restored and healed. And I remember a verse of his where he said, "Greater things will you do than what I've done." And I think of EMDR therapy as one of the greater things, that he gave the wisdom, not only to Francine Shapiro, who discovered it in 1987, but they have been studying eye movements since the 1800s, thinking eye movement and thought processing go hand in hand, based on the fact that when we're sleeping, if you've ever watched someone sleeping and you happen to watch them when they're dreaming, their eyes are moving back and forth. And through that knowledge, they were able to come up with, there must be a connection between eye movement and thought processing. And then Francine Shapiro helped to put the icing on the cake to really begin the study and the research of eye movements.
Yeah, there really is a lot of science to back EMDR therapy.
There is so much research. There's been over 400 studies that they've done since 1987. And certainly when it first was introduced into the community, the psychological community, it was considered like a woo-woo therapy, like people were probably waiting for it to fail. But Francine Shapiro, she was determined to figure this out. And it actually started out with something called EMD, which is eye movement desensitization, where she would help someone take the charge out of an event that was upsetting for them. And through that, about 3 years of helping people that way, she began to see that there was also cognitive restructuring taking place, and people's self-efficacy improved, and people would come in thinking, I'm not good enough. And after EMDR sessions, her EMD until it became EMDR, that's when she thought, wow, there is some reprocessing happening in the brain. And so therefore she changed it to EMDR. In her final book that she wrote, at the 3rd edition, she actually says that if she were to name it today, she would not put the eye movement piece in there. Because certainly many therapists use eye movement, which is like this, or a light bar. But so many of us use tapping. People tap here or their legs. I use pulsars in my office, these little buzzy things that people vibrate. Headphones is bilateral. And some people do walking, and they will walk with their clients and do walking for the bilateral. So there's so many other ways than eye movement now that we use for bilateral.
Interesting. Okay, so for those who are just I've heard EMDR, but I am not sure what that is, and she's talking about eye movements and buzzies and I don't know. What is that? Can you break that down a little bit further?
I certainly can. So if you think about your brain, and you have two sides to your brain, the A and the B. I learned that back in 9th grade biology. And we have the corpus callosum coming down the middle. And if we were to dissect your brain, we would actually find some beautiful trees in your brain. And those beautiful trees are your positive experiences in life, where you feel I am good enough, I am safe, I matter. And we would find those, but we would also find what I kind of envision them as a ball of yarn that's all messed up in the brain. And that happens when we have either what EMDR calls a big T trauma. And a big T trauma might be a car accident. It might be being held up at gunpoint. I work with survivors of maybe a date rape, and so it was that one-time traumatic event. Or we can have a series of traumatic events. Growing up in a home where you never felt good enough, or you needed to be perfect. Or maybe you grew up in a home with alcoholism or addictions, and you feel like, well, I don't matter. My parent chose addictions over making sure I had something to eat. And when we have those series of events, or that one-time event, we can have what I call a dollar reaction to a nickel infraction. Because when those happen, they don't get processed out even through REM. They get stuck or frozen in the brain and in the nervous system in what EMDR says is the raw, inactive form. Even when you get in a situation that looks, smells, tastes like an event that happened earlier, you may not think about that earlier event, but because it's stuck in your brain and in your nervous system, you will have a reaction as if something was happening presently. And through EMDR therapy, we're able to take memories and experiences from the past, target them, and by targeting them, I mean we bring up that memory and the worst part of that memory. We put a negative belief with that memory, I'm not good enough. We think, oh, what do we want to feel? What do I want to believe about myself with this memory? Well, I want to believe I am good enough. Emotions that are associated with it, we scale it, 0 calm or neutral to 10, a lot of angst. And that bilateral stimulation acts as a distraction. It's crossing one side of the brain to the other side of the brain, and it's taking that trauma that happened and it's actually taking it into making it a beautiful tree. We're peeling off the layers of that trauma that happened and able to help someone go from I'm not good enough to yeah, I am. And it will also, if you feel like maybe I need to be perfect, you begin to realize, wait a minute, I don't need to be perfect. That dad that made me make my bed and put a quarter on it so it stood up, there was something wrong with him. Mm-hmm. It's not something wrong with me. And so the bilateral coupled with targeting that memory, and for people who don't have memories, we have other ways to help them to heal, because many people will say, I don't even have any memories. So we have ways to target for them. But it will take the brain and it'll take that trauma encoded network that's stuck, and it will unstick it and just turn it into a beautiful tree that you can't conjure up. I'm not good enough, no matter how hard you try.
I love that. That is pretty impressive. So I know that like a lot of things happen in your brain and your nervous system and all those kind of things. I know personally when I first started doing EMDR, I couldn't do it because as soon as we started doing any kind of EMDR and I started going there, like the whole room would swoop around. I would get really sick. Are you finding that in your practice too, especially with, victims of date rape or some of the other big traumatic things?
Yes, it certainly can happen. We call it an abreaction. And one thing about that, Lisa, is EMDR is not causing those things to happen. It's actually releasing things from your nervous system. Mm-hmm. But probably with a client such as that, and take out probably what I do with a client who we've gone into what we call reprocessing, and there's this abreaction, I will encourage them to stay in that abreaction, letting them know there is a beginning, a middle, and an end, and it is about the release. But probably the next session, I would do more resourcing, such as calming things. Mm-hmm. Might be that we do some things with the polyvagal. There's exercises people can do where you just can put your hands on your cheeks and it helps to do some calming. I have something called the 4 elements that I do with people, and finding a positive memory and drawing it and saying, in this memory I felt valuable. So it would inform me that there probably needs to be a little bit more resourcing before we tackle another reprocessing session for that stabilization piece. It can happen. It doesn't scare me. It did the first time it happened because someone got really dizzy. And I stopped the processing. Now I would know, as long as the client is willing, that I would just say, if you're willing, let's stick with this. Put your foot on the pedal. And I'm going to keep the bilateral going. And it's really a release. The nervous system has stored so much and held it for so long that is a release. And the nervous system is letting it go. Feels scary, but it really is a process that's necessary to help the client to heal.
Isn't that incredible, that stress that maybe happened when we were kids or whatever, like a long time ago, your body has just held on to that for so long, and it's almost like a drug detox, right? You like in the physical part, right? Like, so when you're detoxing from drugs, your body has a physical reaction, and just trauma in your childhood can have such an incredible physical response that has nothing to do with necessarily the trauma. It just is, your nervous system is just kind of releasing that.
It absolutely is releasing it. I say it gets jacked up through all the stuff that can happen.
Yeah.
And the interesting part of that is when someone's been anxious their whole life and we start to do vagal calming, the vagal calming won't feel safe at first. The anxiety feels safe because I know what to do when I'm feeling anxious. I know who to look for. I know to run to my room. I know to be a people pleaser. Like, the anxiety is helping me know what to do and feels more safe to me than calm feels. So part of that process is, as we do vagal calming exercises and we, as Deb Dana says, we befriend our nervous system, it's beginning to teach your nervous system that calm is safe. Calm is healthy. And then that will help your nervous system in the long run to go back the way that God designed our nervous system to be. When that little embryo is in the womb, it is in calm. But even in the womb, a nervous system can get jacked up depending on what's going on outside the womb with that mother.
Yeah, that is another fascinating piece, right? Is that when we're pregnant, our kids are taking on a lot of that, stress and things that are happening outside. So what are some things, because maybe there's a pregnant mama that's listening right now and her life is chaotic and stressful. What are some things that you tell mamas in that stage?
Well, certainly we learn some vagal calming exercises. And there's a beautiful video on YouTube, just calming the vagal nerve, and I'll be happy to send you the link that people could go on. He explains about the vagus nerve and how it works. But you would want to do some calming things, and I know many moms will listen to music, so they'll have their headphones on and have some time of quiet, and talk to your baby. Put your hand, if something stressful is happening, just put your hands right there on your womb and say, little one, everything's okay out here. You may feel a little stressed right now, but I want you to know everything's going to be okay. Just as you would do if you were holding that baby in your arms and looking at that baby in their eyes and soothing them. Your baby has ears and they hear you and they know your voice. So just put your hand on your womb and do some sweet talking to the baby.
I love that. Okay, so many parents that are listening carry quiet shame. Why can't I handle this better? Or what am I doing wrong? How does shame show up on parenting, and why is releasing it so essential for both parents and kids?
Shame is a core issue. Shame is more than I did something wrong, and Brene Brown teaches about this. Guilt is I did something wrong. Shame is there's something wrong with me. There's just something wrong with me, and it is not our friend. Guilt can be our friend because if we've yelled at our child or done something that has hurt a relationship, that guilt can drive you to go and repair. But shame will make you feel like the worst person ever. And so I think it's important to name it, to tame it. Dr. Dan Siegel talks about when something shows up, put a name on it. And it's really important to say, even to yourself, if not to anyone else, I'm feeling so ashamed right now. I can't believe how I handled that with my son. And I feel like there's something wrong with me in my core. And then you want to pep talk yourself to go, I can go repair with my child. I can do better than what my parents did with me. I just did what my mother did. I said something that I thought, wow, that sounded just like my mother. I can break the cycle. Part of breaking the cycle is realizing we are a product. I mean, if parenting didn't matter, why would we change how we parent our own children?
Right. Yep.
Parenting matters. But it's about breaking the cycle of what you experienced as a child and not owning the shame. And if you're a Christian, I mean, the Word of God says He became shame for us, that we might become the children of God. And so I can take the shame I'm feeling. I'm not going to ignore it. I'm not going to push it down. But I'm not going to let it be the boss of me and tell me who I am. Right. Because it's a liar. And so it's really important to name it, recognize it, give it up to the Lord, and then say, now, how can I go repair that thing that I feel guilty about? And it is okay to feel some guilt. There's guilt that you don't want to feel because it's ridiculous. But there's also guilt that will tell you, whoa, you spoke too sharply, and did you see your child shut down? Go and make it right with them.
So you talk about going and make it right and doing that restoration. What does that look like? Do you just go in and say, I'm really sorry I behaved that way, and then walk out? Or what does that look like?
Absolutely not. No, I spoke over you. At least I'm sorry. Absolutely not. I work a lot with couples, and I tell them the words I'm sorry don't heal. And if you can say I'm sorry, and you can feel it in your heart that you're sorry, but it starts to be like tepid tea, where it just doesn't have any power to it. Mm-hmm. I'm sorry has a period after it. And so I can say I'm sorry and walk out of the room and feel like we're good. Hey, we're good. Yeah. And then the child is left to be still in their own pain. And so it's really important when you're going to repair with a child. And I heard many, many years ago that it is so important not to let your child go to bed with his spirit shut down. And the way that we open that spirit back up is by going in and saying this, I need to let you know I spoke so sharply today in front of your friends. I just lost it with you. And I know, and here's step 2, which is really important. I'm going to put myself in my child's shoes. And I need to know feeling words more than mad, glad, scared, right? I need to know more feeling words than that. In fact, I can send you a feelings word list if you want, but maybe you already have some. But I'm going to say, when I did that, I bet you felt so humiliated. And if I were in your shoes, I would have felt shocked that my mom would do that and hurt. Maybe you felt misunderstood in that moment and judged by me. How did it make you feel? So I'm going to guess, because the moment that someone you've hurt realizes, number one, that you're taking responsibility, and secondly, by saying those emotion words, wow, you are getting the pain you caused me. You're validating my pain. And then your child may say all of those things, Mom, and also, and then he or she gives you some emotion words. And then you want to say, and you know what, this is how it affected us. We didn't talk for 3 hours. You ran in your room and slammed the door, and I felt terrible. And it really, it messed up our relationship. I was wrong to yell at you in front of your friends and humiliate you in that way. Will you forgive me? Question mark. Right. Which requires a response from our children. And they can say, yes, I do, which many do. Yeah. Many do, because they love their parents. They want to repair. They can say no, not a great option, but it is an option. Yeah. And then they say, I want to forgive you, Mom. This has happened so many times. before I can really forgive you, I need to see that it is changing, that you're not going to yell at me like that again. And I really want you, Mom, to please work on your temper concerning me. And if they say the last two, the no, or I'm working on it, then the response is, I understand how you need to work this through. Would you let me come back next week and let's talk about this again? Let's see how I did over the week. And I really want to ask your forgiveness and to get your forgiveness. And then you can even say, I'm going to commit to working on this because you are so valuable to me and it breaks my heart that I hurt you in this way. So that is what repair looks like.
I love that. And it's so empowering for our kids to be able to have that power of, yeah, I forgive you. You know what? This happens way too often. I'm going to hold off on that. You know, like, that is such incredibly powerful way to parent. So you also touched on the other thing. Wait, okay, back up. So one of the things that I also want to say is that it's not something, you laid it out beautifully, but if I don't go as a mom and I don't do it exactly how you did it, because I'm trying and I'm practicing, like, that's okay, right? Like, you still, if you get the main gist and you practice, you're continually, like, that is your heart of, you know, you forgive me. Let's talk about how you're feeling. This is maybe how you like.
Yes.
Practice is okay. You don't have to get it perfect the first time.
Absolutely, it's messy and okay, and it is that child sees, wow, in the past my mom might not say I'm sorry at all, or she would come in and say sorry, go to bed, and then be out the room. So if they begin to see a different pattern, even that is healing for a child.
Absolutely. This probably works with our partners too, actually, right?
It absolutely works with partners too. Absolutely. That's my work and couples work.
Yeah.
Do you mind if I get some water?
No, go ahead.
All this talking makes me... Excuse me 1 second.
Okay.
I have it right here. Hopefully you can edit.
No problem. We'll just clip that little bit.
Thank you. Okay.
So how does EMDR help untangle shame, especially when parents are doing their best, but they still feel stuck?
Well, certainly I am shameful is an EMDR target. So what you would do is a client would come in and they would say, there's something wrong with me. Like, I am ashamed that this event happened with my child. And so we could either say, what's the worst part of what happened with your child? And that would be the target. And the belief, I'm shameful. What do you want to believe about yourself? I can do better. Or I might say that thing that came up for you with shame when you interact with your child. When's the worst time in your life you've ever felt that way? Let your mind float back to the worst time. And then they would come up with a memory. And we target an earlier memory based on what they felt with their child. And it will untangle it. It will unravel it. And they will begin to believe, I'm doing the best I can. I'm not shameful. So that's how EMDR can help them with that.
I love that. Okay, so you talk about trauma not being about the event, but about how the nervous system experiences it. Can you explain that for the parents who think that should not have been traumatic?
Yes, and so the event brings on, like, you could have two people in the same event, and one walks away feeling one way about it, and another walks away feeling another way. So it is about the perception that a person has based on whatever home they're living in, whatever their experiences are in a home. And so, Lisa, what was the question? I was going good on that, but could you?
Yeah. So you talk about trauma not being the event, but how the nervous system experiences it. How can you explain for parents who think that shouldn't have been traumatic?
Yeah. How can I explain to parents who what?
They like, that shouldn't be traumatic. Why is this traumatic for me?
Thank you. Okay, let's start with that one again. So you could have two people experience that same event coming away with different beliefs about themselves. And it is how it can affect the nervous system. And then the nervous system is affecting how they show up later. I mean, if you think about it, if someone is affected and they're anxious, and that causes them to always be on guard, the world's not safe, then when they become a parent, they're going to be that smother mother. They're going to always keep, because of things that happen back here. It doesn't make them a bad person. It's just because their nervous system experienced, like when I was 12, I saw a little girl get hit by a car. A little girl that we all loved, like the neighborhood just loved. Her name was Stacy, and most of us babysat Stacy and her brother. And never would I have predicted how that affected my nervous system in such a way that other events that happened in my life, that was the core event, but other events built upon that. And especially when we got children, like Annabeth, we adopted her when she was 3 days old. And then our son Jonathan, he came naturally. They figured out why I was miscarrying. And they had what I would call, I say if you put S in front of mother, you get smother. I was a smother mother. Never would have connected the dots that it was from seeing Stacy get hit by a car. My nervous system was messed up with all that anxiety. And I would say, stay in my sight, stay in my sight, stay in my sight. We've paid for their counseling, because being raised by an anxious mother, it has negative effects for sure.
Yes.
And so it's really, when people begin to understand the nervous system, it takes the shame away. Because they'll say, you mean I'm not crazy? You mean I can do this? I can overcome this? Absolutely you can. And I think if we can frame it from a nervous system point of view and really begin to understand that that is how we have dealt with things, but there is healing, and EMDR therapy is such a beautiful resource for healing, and you don't have to carry that shame anymore. My kids, they'll say, Mom, we just see a difference in you. My children now are 35 and 33. And so they will acknowledge you're a different mom than when we were growing up. You don't try to keep us close anymore like this. I try to keep them close, but
Right,
not.
yeah.
They don't have to always tell me where they are and what they're doing, and I don't panic when they don't answer the phone. It's just I'm a different person, and I feel it, and they feel it. I do tell them I wish. When Annabeth came to us in 1990, I wish I had known about EMDR therapy. They would have been raised by a different mom.
Yeah.
As far you right, but they've given me a lot of grace through the years, understanding that I struggle and how much I hated being an anxious mom. But once we were able to identify that core memory for me, even my shame went away. I went, oh my word, that's why I am the way I am.
Yeah.
And when I worked in Orlando, and we lived in Titusville, which is about an hour away, and I couldn't reach my son one day, before EMDR, I would have told my work, I'm sick to my stomach, I need to go home, and make sure he was okay. But it was after EMDR, and I just figured he was sleeping late. He's a teenager. I texted my therapist and said, I cannot thank you enough for setting me free from worrying about whether or not someone's going to be okay. It really was life-changing for me.
No. So what happens when parents minimize an experience that felt big to their child, even unintentionally?
Right? I think it's really important to be attuned to our children. Because especially if you do something unintentionally, you can still see their shoulders drop or their head go down. And also, as adults, we can minimize something because we're adults and we have adult brains. For children, things show up really, really big. And it doesn't coddle a child to acknowledge the bigness of something. If they come home, and in fact, I want to email you my emotional responding sheet, because I'd like to talk about that for a minute.
Sure.
Or maybe 2 minutes. But it's really important that when a child comes home and they say, "Oh, Mom, I was the last one picked again at recess," because they're not a good, kickball kid. What we tend to do is say, "Well, those kids are dumb. They're just dumb," or "Go do something else at recess. Why do you always have to stand up with the other kids?" And what we're doing is we're giving them facts, logic, and reason, which is what we don't want to do. Sure, there are other things to do. That's a fact. You could go play with other kids. Those kids may be dumb because they're so rude. We can also criticize, and so what I'm giving you are the 5 unproductive ways that when a child is in pain, and it minimizes their pain when we respond this way, even if we think we're being sympathetic. By saying, "Go play with other kids." We think that's helping. It's not. And the second is criticism. "Well, what's wrong with you? Every day you come home, and will you never learn to not stand in that line and let them pick you last?" Nobody needs criticism, children especially. The next one is called complaint, which is one-upping. "You know what? You think you had it bad today at school? Let me tell you about my day."
Yeah.
And there's a time for facts, logic, and reason. There's a time to talk about my day, but not when this pain has just come into the room and my child is so upset. And another one is neglect, where most of us, until we know better, aren't comfortable with uncomfortable emotions. Mm-hmm. So we want to rush them through. Like I heard "stop crying" or "I'll give you something to cry about" when I was growing up.
Right.
We weren't raised to go, "Oh, you look so disappointed." Like we weren't raised like that.
Right.
And we got to change that cycle, which we did in our family. I'm so thankful we did when I learned this material. And so neglect is, "Come on, I got dinner to make. Like, go play."
Yeah. Yeah.
And not allowing them to talk about it. And the last one's cheerleader. "You got this. Go back tomorrow and you can show them, and you just show them that you can be good, and I believe in you," which is great when in its place. But emotional responding, and what helps a child to take this big emotion and help it to collapse is to recognize the emotion that's coming in, where I might say to my child, "Honey, oh, you must have been devastated to not be chosen at the beginning.
Yep.
I'm hurting for you that this happened to you." That doesn't coddle a child. It connects you to that child. They go, "Oh, wow, my mom gets it." And then they'll head on back to their room and do whatever they're going to do.
Right.
You haven't made it bigger. You've actually helped collapse it by responding with compassion, with gentleness, with some understanding. And that helps your child to feel really connected to you. And that's a beautiful thing. So I'll send you that handout if you'd like.
That'd be great. And the link will be in the comments. You can click on that too if you want. So let's take what you just kind of shared a little bit and let's move it to the teenage years, right?
Yeah.
So we have everything that is normally that you look at are just like a little tiny thing tends to get blown way up out of proportion, right? And in our heads we're like, "Oh my gosh, seriously." But really to them it's everything, right? So how can we take not eye roll and really come down to where they're going from, because okay, come on now. Okay, you can't find your orange shoes. You have a whole closet full of other shoes. This is not worth screaming and crying, slamming doors. But coming down to their level and really helping them to feel heard so we can move on.
Yes. Well, it really is the same philosophy, because when you said, "Oh my gosh, what about the orange shoes? You've got all those," that's facts, logic, and reason.
Right.
You got all those other shoes in there. You've got to attend to, think of it like an EMT. Your child is bleeding in that moment. Your teenager's bleeding in that moment. How do I then tend to that wound? And then I can say, "Look at all these other shoes." Yeah. But it's that coming in and saying, "Oh, I can tell how frustrated you are." And even I can tell you're frustrated. I think as parents, we need to stay in our adult brain. And by that I mean, begin to think of what do you want the outcome to be in the long run. I have people say, you're so close to your kids. And like, remember, they're 35 and 32. But part of that is because when they were teenagers, we showed up for them, my husband and I, when they were in pain, when they struggled with things. My daughter loses everything. And so, is it frustrating? And were there times I got frustrated? Absolutely. Absolutely. I'm giving you what we try to do. And if I messed up, though, I would repair. It was always about rupture and repair. And Dr. Alan Shore says it's better to have rupture with repair as a parent and a child than never to have rupture at all. So that can take away some shame. I want to encourage parents that it really is about the rupture. You're going to rupture with your child. It's not if, it's when. But if you repair with that child, Dr. Shore says that gives them resiliency. So our goal is not to never rupture with our child. Our goal is that when we do rupture, we show up with repair, like what I talked about earlier. And so even with teenagers and their hormones are raging, and our adult brain will remind ourselves, instead of getting in the mud with them to scrapple with them and, oh my gosh, you just never have it, which can happen, but you don't want that to happen more than more than your adult brain. And it would be reminding yourself of this young person in front of me needs me to stay regulated. Their nervous systems, especially as children, littles, but even their nervous system are tied to your nervous system. And so if you can be that regulator for them, and I know with my daughter especially, I would take her hands and I would say, can we just breathe together for a few minutes? And I go, breathe in, breathe out. And we would do 3 to 5 of those, which helps because when you are upset, right here, which is your decision maker, goes offline. And if you can just take even a minute to do some breathing, that CEO comes right back online, and then you're able to go to the next step. All right, we can't find your orange shoes right now. Is there a second best? And I will, while you're at school today, I've got some time, I'm going to comb this house. There's teamwork. I'm going to comb this house and try to find those shoes for you. And when I do, I'd like you to take me out for ice cream. I'd like a little reward for my work. It's just important to stay connected. I know this is an old phrase, but I'm going to say it. Children spell love Time. And even if you believe your child could care less about you, that you're the last person they want to spend time with, I would encourage you to put on your calendar once a month. And if you have 4 children, every week on a Saturday morning, take them to the cheapest donut store or Waffle House, or it doesn't have to be a lot of money, but go to breakfast with them. Buy some of the cards that you see on Amazon, or I'm not endorsing Amazon, but some of those places where things you can talk about with your teenager, just that you don't think normally to talk about. And if they know your heart is to connect with them, that will move their heart to open up to you. So I would encourage you to just spend some time, even if you think they don't want to, they do.
And I think that I always tell the parents that I work with that it's a lot less threatening to be in a car together. Like, if your relationship is at a point of such rupturing consistently, and they really are, there's a lot of animosity there's nothing wrong with getting in the car, getting ice cream, and like just going for a half-hour, 45-minute drive. Because a lot can happen when you don't have to face to face, but you're sitting side by side. It's a lot easier sometimes to open up and get some, conversation going.
100%, and tell them leave their phone at home. Because first thing you do, you get in the car, that phone comes out. And I would say, nope, no phones, no electronic gadgets. It's going to be you and me. We're both going to be uncomfortable.
Yeah.
We're going to figure it out because you mean the world to me.
Yep.
And I'm trying to figure out the best way I can for us to stay connected. And the reward of that is just priceless.
Yep, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, let's switch a little bit and go to fight or flight.
Okay.
So, so many parents feel frustrated because nothing works in the heat of the moment. Can you explain what actually is happening to the brain when a child is completely dysregulated?
Yeah. A little bit what I just said about the CEO of the brain is right here. And that's your decision maker. That's I'm going to go this way. Oh, wait, no, I need to go this way. That's regulated. We call it ventral vagal. If we're thinking about the vagal nerve, and the vagal nerve starts right back here, but they call it the wandering nerve, which means it's up in your cheeks. It's in your ears. So if you fiddle with your ears, that can do some vagal calming. It's in your eyes, but then it wanders down into all the organs of your body. And the vagal nerve is always looking for safety. So by that I mean, if you've argued with your neighbor and you end up at the grocery store and you're about to just, you're doing your thing, and then you go down you start to turn down an aisle and you see your neighbor, your vagal nerve will go, alert, alert. It reminds me of that second movie, Inside Out, and that anxiety's all over that board. That's what happens when you see your neighbor you've argued with and you go, okay, not that one. Let me, alert. And that obviously happens with children. It's just how the vagal nerve works. And so we have ventral vagal, and that's the top. If you did it like a ladder, that's the top of the ladder, which says I'm connected, I'm doing fine, life is good. But it also in ventral vagal says, but if life isn't good, I'm going to be okay. Mm-hmm. But then and that's parasympathetic. That's rest and digest. We're in a good space. But then we have fight or flight, and that's the sympathetic. And fight or flight is if someone's annoyed me and I'm going to duke it out with you. I'm going to get in your face. I'm going to yell. And of course, you have some teenagers. That's where they go. They're just, but the CEO is offline. So we say things we don't want to say. We do things we don't want to do. Mm-hmm. And so that we're not resting and digesting there. All of our energy is either I'm going to fight you or I'm running as fast as I can away from you. Yep. The bottom of the ladder is called dorsal vagal. And dorsal vagal is collapse. When I was growing up, and I grew up in the 60s, they would tell people, let your baby cry it out when they're going to bed. That is not great advice because the baby cries and cries and cries and cries. And then finally the baby's quiet because the baby has gone to sleep. But they realize it wasn't that the baby cried himself to sleep. The baby collapsed. The baby said, nobody's coming to rescue me. I'm giving up. And that's what dorsal vagal is. It's I just want to stay in bed. I'm depressed. I'm lethargic. This life is so hard. And to get to ventral vagal, you have to go through sympathetic. If you're in dorsal vagal, you got to get some movement going. You got to get some vagal exercises going. You got to get out of bed and put up the blinds. It's can be a little bit more complicated than that, but sometimes that's what it does. Just get some movement going and then get you back to ventral vagal. And so what you got to do, take a break. Like I said earlier, where you could just say, hey, let's just take a minute and breathe together. Mm-hmm. Or it might be, I can tell we're about to get a really bad argument. 5 minutes. Let's set the timer for 5 minutes, come back together. It doesn't take long to get yourself from fight, flight, freeze to ventral vagal, where when you come back into a conversation, you're able to talk from here, not out of that fight, flight, freeze. And that's why I can highly recommend a book called Anchored, Anchored, by Deb Dana. Mm-hmm. She writes beautifully about the polyvagal nervous system and has a ton of exercises in that book. And it might be a book that families can read together and practice those exercises together to keep them on a more even keel instead of a family that just stays in fight, flight.
I love that. Okay, so You emphasize rupture and repair instead of getting it right. Why is repair more powerful than perfection in parenting?
Oh, I hate perfection. Who is perfect? Like, who wants to even live with someone perfect? And that's an EMDR target. I need to be perfect. Mm-hmm. And have you ever been around someone like that, Lisa, where everything had to be just like this, and it just was so much pressure? And then, I don't know, if I'm around people like that, then I feel pressured to be perfect, and I know I'm not. I'm a mess, and I'm right. Or I'll feel big and messier, like I'll feel bleh about myself. And so it's just really important to understand it's not if mistakes happen, it's when. And then that when gives me the opportunity for a win with my children or my spouse to go, wow, this was messy, this hurt, this caused disruption in our family. I'm glad I'm not perfect. I don't want to be perfect. You don't want me to be perfect, right, children? You don't want me. Yeah. And I don't want you to be perfect. And so then you sit down and have a conversation about what happened using those steps that I talked about and healing. It can be very powerful and really beautiful for a family that understands the power of repair when a rupture happens. And for children to see their parents repair when they have a rupture, because it scares kids when their parents are arguing and then they never see what happened after that. You know, maybe the parents made up after the kids went to bed, or they talked about it behind closed doors. I remember one time my daughter saying to me, well, are you and Dad ever going to get divorced? Because a lot of her friends, their parents, I said, no, your dad's stuck with me. Like, we're stuck. We're stuck together. And I'm like, where did that come from? And then I recalled that there have been 2 or 3 families in her classes at school that the parents were getting divorced. And she just wanted that reassurance of stability. And that's what children need. They just want to know, are we stable? Am I secure? And to be able to help. Now, if you are going through a divorce, it's very important to, number one, let the child know how much you're never going to divorce the child, how much you and your spouse love that child. Yeah. And my second tip on that is to never berate your spouse in front of the child, and be careful if you're on the phone with someone berating your spouse, that your children are not in earshot of that.
Yeah, because kids, whether they do it consciously or not, connect with both parents, right? Like, if Dad is a jerk, I'm part of Dad, so I must be a jerk too, or whatever that looks like, right?
That is the truth, Lisa. Absolute truth. They internalize it. What you said is, they internalize, I'm a part of Dad, I must be a jerk too. And we don't want our children to feel like that. No.
No matter what our situation is.
No matter what our situation is.
Okay. So what are 2 to 3 practical tools parents can start using today to support a child who's holding on to big emotions or past hurt?
Well, definitely the emotional responding, the handout I'm going to send to you, because, and I think it's great to have a conversation with a child to say, you know what, I've read over this handout and I've been giving you facts, logic, and reason. And what that has done is shut you down. So I'm going to work on responding differently to you when something happens. I have criticized you for big emotions that must have really hurt you. And so will you give me some space to work on myself to be the parent that I want to be for you? So I think having a conversation about the changes that you're planning on making, and one of them would be not using the 5 unproductive responses that I listed, but use productive responses and let your child know that you're going to be working on it, and to help you in that. Because if they learn what's unproductive, they give them permission to say, Mom, that sounded like complaint. I was talking about me and you went to talking about you. Could we talk about me first? And use some humor in that so that you become a team as you work on connecting better. I think it's important to read books. I know one book that I recommend is Parenting with Love and Logic. And so it's on Amazon. They have it for children, they have it for teens, and so I'd encourage people to get books, or if there's parenting classes. I know we have a therapist in Orlando that does online parenting classes. She keeps a waiting list. She's does a lot with the Connected Child, Purvis, can't think of her, Karen Purvis, and her material. And so she's getting a parenting class to help you and let your kids know you're going. Or if you're going for couples counseling, don't keep it a secret. Say, you know what, we're working to be stronger so we can be stronger as a family.
Exactly. And if you're a mom, you can sign up for my class, the Unshackled Moms Alliance.
There you go.
Or the Empowered Parents Alliance, also online.
There you go. Absolutely. Sign up for Lisa's classes. And I think the third tool I would say is to play. To play and to laugh together. Go to the park. Get some bubbles and just blow bubbles. Even teenagers love those things. Or get Nerf guns and balls and go out in the backyard. We bought the big Connect 4 game that you see at hotels, and I thought, I want one of those for my house.
Yeah.
So games are so important. Back in the day, we played apples to apples. We laughed so hard every time we played it. So do a family game night where we're not talking about anything hard. We're not talking about chores that weren't done. We're focusing on having fun as a family. So that would be the third tool that I would mention, is just play. Learn how to play with your children again.
Absolutely, which I know, I understand from talking to parents that sometimes it's really hard, right? Like, I didn't play as a child, and so I don't know how to play with my child, right? But really, if you let your child lead, or you take numerous things to the park and just let them take the lead, and then you just do it. And even if I've had parents go, well, but I'm bored, I don't want to play Barbies, I don't want to play whatever. It's not about you, right? It's about your kiddo. It's about coming alongside them and taking on an interest that they have and making it your own. Fake it till you make it sometimes, but sometimes you just got to do it.
And that's what love looks like. It looks like a lot of different flavors, but one flavor of love is, I'm going to do this for you because you mean the world to me.
Yep.
Even though it's not something I would normally spend my time doing, I'm going to do it for you.
Yep.
Because you're important to me. And I think it is important to bring out that inner child. And if you didn't play as a child, I hope you will grieve that you didn't play as a child. Do some mourning over that piece. Yeah. And then begin to let yourself play now. Because play is important.
Yeah, absolutely. I still play to this day.
I do too. I do too. It's so important.
So, for the parent listening who feels exhausted, discouraged, or afraid that they've messed things up and there's just no going back, what would you want them to hear?
Well, I love celebrating New Year's. And I love celebrating New Year's because there's something about the hope of new beginnings. Every year, December 31st, we've got the party hats on, we got the fireworks going. Some people make New Year's resolutions. I gave that up a few years ago.
Yeah.
But there's something about newness and new beginnings, and every day is a new opportunity to do something different. And so certainly I can understand the exhaustion of what hasn't happened. But I also want to encourage those parents to find some invigoration and that things can change. And it might be saying to yourself, I'm going to pick one small thing that I'm unhappy with in the way I'm parenting, one thing, and I'm going to work on that until I feel like I have it down, instead of going, oh, there's 10 things I got to do and I'm so overwhelmed and I don't know where to start.
Yeah.
And you may ask your child, what is one thing you would like for me to work on? So that I'm the parent that you want to be as much as I want, as the parent that I want to be. Because you know your grandmother and you know how she is, and that was my mother. So therefore, that's what you're getting. And so how can we make it different for you? And get your children involved in that too. Because again, I always think about teamwork. So I want to encourage you. Children are so forgiving. Now, it can take time. They're not like that puppy dog that forgives immediately and licks you and we're all good to go. Because the wounds that are there will take time to be repaired. But children love their parents. And even when I work with adults who had some of the most horrific upbringings that I could ever think of, there's a love for that parent anyway. And we always honor the love for that parent who caused a lot of pain for that now adult. But your children love you. They love you in your messiness. They love you in the mistakes that you've made. But they want better for you too. And so I would acknowledge the exhaustion that's there. We do want to acknowledge that. But I also want to tell you there's hope that you can change and that your family and your family dynamics can change by taking some of these tools that you've learned today and talking with your kids about it and working on one piece at a time.
I love that. Okay, so I'm a mom, I'm listening, and I'm realizing, you know what? Maybe there's some things in my childhood that I need to go and process through. Maybe EMDR might be a way for me to help do that. What are some things that I should look for in a therapist that does EMDR? Because that is such a buzzword. Everybody does it. Not everybody does it well. So what kind of things do I need to look for?
Certainly, because I'm a part of EMDR, which is EMDR approved EMDR. And there are other trainings out there I'm aware of that aren't as thorough. So I would look for an EMDR approved EMDR therapist. Once someone gets trained in EMDR therapy, they can stay trained the rest of their life and not do anything else as far as going up the ladder. And then the next step is certified. If you feel like you have complex trauma, then I would encourage you to find a certified EMDR therapist. If you have some issues you think, I don't think I need someone having that extra education or experiences with a consultant, then trained. People do really beautiful work as a trained EMDR therapist. And it's okay to ask for a 15-minute phone consultation. Most therapists will offer that, where you're able to speak on the phone, hear their voice, hear their philosophy, and ask any questions you may have. And I think the most important piece is that therapeutic relationship and feeling comfortable with your therapist. So it's hard. It takes a lot of courage to find a therapist. And a lot of times people go to Psychology Today, or maybe their particular insurances offer only these therapists. So you just got to look at their picture. And if you go the first time and you think this isn't a good fit, it's okay to not go back. It's okay to figure out who is the best fit for you, because that to me is the most important piece of your healing, is making sure you feel safe and you feel like you're in good hands with your therapist.
Oh, I totally agree. It's probably one of the most important pieces to your team. So you want to make sure that, there's some rapport there. First, get that they're certified in the way that you need them to be. Then, the personality and that connection. And then, get ready to do the work.
Get ready to do the work.
I love that. Okay, so I like to end every one of my podcasts with a little rapid fire.
Okay.
So I'm going to ask you questions, and you just tell me exactly the first thing that comes to mind.
Okay.
Okay. Coffee or tea?
Coffee.
Quiet mornings or late night deep talks?
Late night.
One word that describes your parenting style today and not when your kids were little?
Connected.
A book you recommend to parents over and over again?
Yeah, that would be Parenting with Love and Logic.
Love that. Something that brings you back to calm you when you feel dysregulated?
My husband.
What does he do to help bring you back?
I love it because he'll give me a hug. I'm very, affection is my, love language. And so he can even tell, he'll look at me and go, do you need a hug? I go, I do. Or I'll ask for a hug. I'll say, I'd like a hug, please. So he's just, his presence, I'm more all over the place. And he's steady as she goes.
Love that. Love that. Okay. One misconception about EMDR that you would love to clear up right now.
Yeah, is that it is not hypnosis. And many people think that we hypnotize, and we do not.
No.
So it's not meditation. It's none of that. It's just about the brain and helping the brain to heal. So that's the misconception that I hear the most.
Absolutely. Okay, so if parents remember one thing from this episode, what do you hope it is?
I hope that children want to be connected to them, and there are ways to fix that if they feel disconnected, that there are things that they can do, even if they have a 17-year-old, that there are things they can do to begin to repair those relationships so that they can become friends as their children get older.
Absolutely, absolutely. I know mine are 23 and 25, and I still have times where we sit down and, work on the connection piece.
Beautiful.
Sometimes I miss the boat still, and I've been parenting for a while.
Yes. That's right.
All right. Thank you so much for coming. And we have some classes coming up in March, so look for those in the description below. I'll have the website there so you can check those out. Until next time, we'll see you soon.